done. I don't want to put on a mask anymore. I still will, but I don't want to. Like, just the idea of going out and having to put on that mask and then you're like smelling your own bad breath. I'm like so done with it. I share this because I think a lot of us are feeling this way right now. I was listening to this podcast the other day. You might have heard of it. It's Michelle Obama's new podcast. And I really related to what was said. It was asking things like, does the world have to come crashing down first? Does it have to come to the crumbles and shambles of it all? And I was thinking, yeah, maybe so. And is that now? Because it feels like now. But what was shared in the podcast that I also agree with is that society is actually learning and growing also. And this is the main idea that really helps me when I feel overwhelmed. A rhythm that has helped me in all of this is 1, to recognize the good that is happening. And number 2, add to what's happening. And number 3 is what I like to call rinse and repeat. Like your hair, you know, like rinse and repeat. First, we must recognize and seek out these glimpses of hope. Like, it could be, you know, an activist that you really look up to and, you know, shine light on what's happening. For me, I like to think about, you know, even the person that greeted me in the elevator. My neighbor who was coloring with her white friend who handed him a brown crayon saying, look, you can use this to color your people with. Like, that is so awesome. And, you know, I really do think that these small things add up to make a difference. And, you know, reflecting and seeking these out can look really different for each person. Maybe all it requires is just taking a moment to just recognize and remember and try to bring to light those moments or those things that are happening around you. Or it can mean it's journaling, or it could also just mean that you talk with a friend and share these stories with them. But in a world where there is so much emphasis on the drama and the negativity that's happening, I think it's really important that we're actually shining light on these good things that are happening, you know? The next thing that I think is really helpful is to actually add to this good happening. And it can be big or small again, you know? Like, you don't have to be out and being like, oh, okay, I'm gonna become like this next, I don't know, I feel like I can't name anyone because everyone's controversial these days. But you know, like, I'm gonna be this next fill in the blank. No, like, I think it starts really small. Like, even just cleaning up your communal space for the good of the people around you. Maybe it requires actually time for you to meditate and just, maybe it's to bake a dessert for a friend who lives on their own right now. Or to just call up a friend to listen and just be a friend that's filled with joy and there for them. Again, these small things do add up. I also want to mention that I don't think it's necessarily that we need to do something new. You know, sometimes it's even just like reorienting our mind to recognize that what we did was good. I think helps me feel less overwhelmed. And thirdly, the rinse and repeat. Oh my gosh. Oh, when I thought of this, I thought it was so clever. But rinse and repeat. Should I put in a shot in here where I'm like washing my hair? No, I'm not gonna do that. What I mean by that is at the end of the day, reflect back on what you did. And not in like a boastful way, but to just say, okay, this is what I did, this is what I did not do. And just as we don't want to be so boastful when we're saying, okay, wow, I did this, you know? We also don't want to be like, oh my god, I can't believe I didn't do that. And be like, get into like this place of guilt and be like, oh, I should have been able to do that. You know, like that's not really helpful either. Like, I feel like this time is just a place to be like, okay, I'm gonna rinse out to be started for another day. You know, with these things that, you know, you wish you would have been able to do, I just like to say, okay, these are for another day. Because it's okay. We have another day. That being said, it's really hard not to be impatient. I can say that for sure. I'm definitely a very impatient person too, but we try, right? Every day we try. And the final thing I want to share is that you're not in this alone. You know, despite us having to be physically distant, I hope we can remember that spiritually and emotionally we don't have to be distant necessarily. Like, we can't. We're not isolated beings. We are dependent on our communities, whether they're big or small, like maybe it's a friend group or just your family or your neighborhood or, you know, your church or whatnot. And we need to recognize that we need that. Like, it's part of who we are as human beings. There are so many good people doing things in the world that I think that's what really helps me. With the first tip, what really helps me with that is to recognize that, like, okay, there's this big mountain of a lot of things that need to change in the world, and so much of it's frustrating and overwhelming and it feels like it's too much, but it's also not dependent on just you. So when I'm able to look at the smaller sphere of community, whether it's in my friend group or my marriage or just my family or my neighborhood, like, that seems way more manageable and gives me way more hope to just see how I can make a difference in that sphere. I don't think it has to be grandiose. And actually, in a sense, I think starting there might make a bigger difference in the grand scheme of things down the road. We weren't meant to do this thing called life in a vacuum. I hope this was helpful for anyone. And I hope it wasn't too serious. I try not to be too serious, but sometimes you just gotta do that. This video is just as much for me as it is for you. So I hope you can feel connected and know that we're all trying together. I think that's it.